So before we start, some things I will share tonight in the live is, that I'm from the area where this originally originated from, that I grew up in that area.
Yeah, not just the area, like right next door, the next county.
Yeah, yeah. And I have friends in that county. I have friends at the local papers in that county. I have friends that followed this when it was going on. And I have friends that know your ex. And they did not have very good things to say about her.
I'm sure they didn't. She has a kind of magical effect on everybody.
Yeah. So it was really interesting, because after I realized where it originated from, I just went and asked around, like, do you guys know? Because I left, as I told you, I left that area in 92, but I have friends that still live there. And I'm like, do you remember this? And as I was asking some of my friends, one of them was like, I know that woman. And I was like, and they're like, I don't believe that she should have ever been allowed within 50 yards of a child. That was her exact point. She's like, no. She's like, she should not have ever been allowed in children. And she's like, I remember that happening, and remember thinking at the time, she's like, when it was happening, like, how would they have ever awarded her custody? I don't understand. Of you, if you don't know, is Michelle, and and she is reclaiming your voice on this app. The purpose of Michelle being here is to moderate. So if she sees anybody being assholes in the comment section, sees us missing a question in the comment section, that's what she's here for. Other than that, anybody that is requesting to come in as guests, it is really just going to be a conversation between me and Chad so that he can tell his story. So I'm going to give a little intro to where I know this started. This started back in Tennessee, correct?
Yeah.
In what year?
Well, which part do you want? I mean, because
originally, when was your custody case decided in Tennessee?
Oh, 2002. You mean in my favor or the first? Okay, because I think what you're asking is, when did I get full custody? I got custody in 2004.
Okay. So you originally had the case in 2002. You were granted your full custody in 2004, and then it's been haywire in your life ever since, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. So when you were given custody, they were aware that you were taking your child overseas for work? Because isn't that the reason that took you over to Europe, was your job?
Yes, I was overseas in 2001. And in fact, the court was not only aware, but the court ordered him to live overseas. It's in the court order. It says that the child is ordered to live overseas with the father. It actually says it in the court order.
Okay. And so how this started was, your ex started another custody case in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And they did not, at that time, feel like they should look at the original custody orders, or were not made aware of the original custody orders. That's what I don't understand, how that was even possible.
Okay. So what I'm trying not to do here is, well, like when I talked to Matthew Cox the other day, he would ask me a question and I would go on, because I know what question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is. So if I just go forever, I can talk for 5 or 6 hours. So I'm trying to answer your questions as shortly as possible so that I can find where you want to dig, instead of me just telling you blat out everything. It's complex, though, in this portion. So what happened is, I'm going to have to speak a little bit. So we divorced in 2002. Initially, she had custody. She kidnapped him twice. She ran up Pennsylvania, couldn't find him, had to find him. Pennsylvania gave custody back to me, sent him to Tennessee. I had custody. And then she was given 2 months with him. She didn't send him overseas. And so then I ended up getting full absolute custody, and he was sent overseas to live with me. So after he was already living overseas with me, for several years, we sent him back for summer visitation in 2006. And at the end of 2006, she didn't want to return him, and she made up a whole bunch of just crazy stuff, like Europe is unsafe and that kind of stuff. And so she went to a Pennsylvania judge, and the Pennsylvania judge said, no, the Tennessee order is valid. And then ordered him to be put on a plane. She said no, had to have the police take him away from her and put him on a plane. And so then he's living back in Europe. That was September 3rd, 2006, that he arrived back in Europe.
Okay.
Then 2 months later, they basically accused me of kidnapping him. And I know it sounds crazy, but the thing is, he was in Europe. They knew where he was. And it gets more complicated because he took a temporary order, and first of all, they lied about several things. He's declared my son to be born in the state of Pennsylvania so that he could take jurisdiction over the case. The problem is, he wasn't born in Pennsylvania. And he never lived in Pennsylvania except for summer visitation or when she kidnapped him there for 2 months, and both were illegal, so they don't count. And worse yet, when you transfer jurisdiction, you have to communicate with the previous state. So you got to call up the previous state and say, we want to take jurisdiction, and we want to take it. He didn't do any of this. And he wasn't like he didn't know the judge, because they communicated in 2004 and 2005 before I got custody about this. So the judge knew that Tennessee had jurisdiction. And the Tennessee order also says that it's lasting until the child's 18.
Okay.
So he basically, the short version is that from a legal standpoint, he took emergency jurisdiction, we didn't have a right to do, and then ordered me to show up to his court on like 2 weeks' notice, and I couldn't. So he sent lawyers, and he got mad and declared the child kidnapped. That's the short version, but there's a whole lot more that involves the state police and the prosecutor and the FBI. But if I just go on forever, it's another 3-hour story. So that's the short version.
And totally get that. The one thing that I want to call to action to anybody that's listening is to go look at the video from the district attorney that was involved in some of this, that is on Chad's page, and him talking about in his younger days of being thrown into family court and not really knowing what he was doing. Well, guess who was involved with him in family court at that point in time? But Chad. And he's now later admitted he basically didn't really kind of understand a whole lot and didn't really know what he was doing. Because the video's on his page, and I watched the video multiple times, and I'm baffled that he would come forward and say that at this point in time, like admit that, but then also not look back on cases, knowing that that's how he felt about how he was trained, what he learned, and what he was doing at that point in time. Not look back and say, do I have any big, huge oopses? Do I have any big, huge mistakes? Do I potentially have a man that is locked out of our country, wanted as an FBI fugitive? Is that possible? But apparently he's not, because accountability is hard.
Did you read the September transcript?
I think I did, but I read all of this back in November, and I've had a rough couple months. So
okay. Well, that was the one where we asked for a dismissal, and he told me to turn myself into the U.S. Embassy, which doesn't exist, and refused to provide a trial date and all kinds of things. And just, he knows I'm dying here, and he's like, well, it's not my problem. And he said this in court in front of a judge.
So before we go any further, I want you to tell everybody that's listening why it's imperative that you get back to the United States. I know your health is waning. You're not able to get the medical care, and you need to get back here for that. Is that correct?
Close. I have some sort of kidney and neurological disease that we don't know what it is, because I'm on a small island of 35,000 people in the Caribbean. And our hospital is extremely basic. We don't have a cardiac unit. We only got a dialysis unit a couple years ago. We don't have an MRI machine, although we're getting one. So our hospital can't do anything more than they're already doing for me here. I need to urgently get to somewhere else, but not the U.S., because the U.S. is super expensive. I can't afford it. And plus just the distance. I just need to go to another island that has more advanced healthcare. And
you can't travel because you don't have a passport that's valid to travel. Is that where we're at?
Almost. It's close again. I can't travel. I do have a second passport. I'm a national here, and I can travel on that passport, except for the fact that the FBI has me on Interpol Red, which means I'll be arrested anywhere I go, which is what happened to me in Bulgaria when I spent a tour of 5 different Bulgarian prisons. That's what happens when there's Interpol Red notice. That's why I can't go anywhere.
Okay. Michelle, did that work? She said I was.
You want to go up a little higher, my love.
Okay. She said I was up.
Yeah, get high like me.
Keep going. Get up a little bit. Perfect. And then that's good.
Okay. So you have an Interpol Red notice. So now you're in Europe and they arrest you. Is this what happens next?
Well, with Interpol Red notice, if I travel, they'll arrest me. So when I cross a border or something, it sets a flag off and it says international kidnapper, and the guns come out. That's what happened in Bulgaria. And then I have to go through the extradition process, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and during which I spend months to years in a prison waiting for them to deny it. They don't arrest me here where I live because they've already tried to extradite me from here and were denied by the courts. So I'm perfectly free here, just like I would be in Bulgaria.
Okay.
I've been through 3 extraditions. 3. You name me a single fugitive in the history that's gone through 3 extraditions. I don't know how many people. I don't know. Have there other people 3 extraditions?
I have yet to hear of anybody. So I mean, not to say that there's not, but I have yet to hear of it. So now, take us from the point where now they've issued this order in Pennsylvania, and they've charged you with kidnapping. You're in Europe at the time with your child, correct?
Well, not quite. It's yes, there's some details in there. Pennsylvania never charged me with kidnapping, never.
Okay.
And
So
the
how
Pennsylvania
did you
case
get
has since
charged
been
with
dismissed as
kidnapping?
well. Okay. Let me try and make this as short as possible. So
Man,
basically,
teach
she went.
me how to do that. I'm from PA, man. I would love
Uh-huh.
to know how to get it.
Well, there's if you want the real long version, I'm not trying to throw people away from this video, but there's an interview on YouTube with Matthew Cox where I go for 3 hours. So if you really want, and it is drawn out. So if you want the drawn out version, you can get it there. Otherwise, yeah, I'll be happy to give you the details. So he's back living in Europe because the judge had the police take him away from her at the end of summer visitation, September 2006. He's living in Europe, and the judge in Pennsylvania decides he wants to talk to the child for some unknown reason and orders him to appear before the court, and he can't because he's in school and I'm working overseas. So we send lawyers. The judge gets mad, and he gives her temporary custody under emergency jurisdiction.
Okay.
So he said that she has temporary custody, and he did it with a temporary order, interlocutory, which in the state of Pennsylvania are unappealable, so we can't appeal it.
Okay.
So we appeal it, but we're turned down because you can't appeal them. So then we get special permission to appeal, which took like 2 years. And when we did appeal, they said we appealed too late, but it was because we weren't allowed to file. So basically, then she takes this. He issues a bench warrant, a failure to appear to court. He never has issues a kidnapping charge, nothing. I have no criminal charges whatsoever in Pennsylvania. All he has is a temporary custody order for her while he was already living overseas in Europe. So he's living overseas.
Yes.
And he just changes custody while he's not even there, and temporary custody only. And he knows I can't appeal it. So he did it on purpose. So then that's November. So then December comes and her phone gets disconnected because I was making sure my son always called her and wrote her and stuff. And he can't get through to her. And I have a letter from our lawyer to her lawyer dated January 13th, 2007, because of Christmas and stuff, saying that, hey, we don't have a phone number anymore. And the child lives overseas. This was really before email. Well, they had email, but, you wanted phone, and mail took a long time. So basically, he's got no way to talk to his mom no more because she's disconnected her phone.
Okay.
She won't give it to us. We don't know what's going on. So then, and I don't remember when exactly this part happened, but my mom, who lives in Pennsylvania but not in that area, my mom at the time lived in Crawford County.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, and so she gets a call from the Pennsylvania State Police barracks near Titusville.
Yep.
And it's a state police, and he's been told that I have come into the house and, okay, I don't know if he's been told or he's been led to believe. Okay, I want to be clear on this. I don't know if she actually said it or she just led, because she's really good at leading people to believe things. Mm-hmm. So I think she just framed it in a way, but who knows? The thing she's done, she could have just said I did it too. But anyways, the officer was under the impression that I came in the house and kidnapped him, and he's about ready to issue the alert thing, Amber Alerts, and if he doesn't get a hold of me. So he called my mom. He's got my mom's number. Guess where he got my mom's number from? So, and she knows I'm overseas, so she calls my Skype number, and she's like, the state police just called. You need to call this dude. So I call him, and I straighten it all out. And he's like, okay, I get what's going on here. And I get you're overseas, so, it couldn't have happened, right? I'm like, yeah, exactly. He's like, well, send me the custody orders from Tennessee. And if everything's like you say, then I'm just going to take this report and I'm not going to file it. Because I asked him, I said, can you file it? I told her, I said, I've been battling her and I have custody and she had kidnapped me before. I said, can you charge her with filing a false kidnapping report or at least harassment or something? And he's like, no, she's a distraught mother and I don't want to do the paperwork. So I'm like, well, it's already been filed, right? And he's like, no, I'm just investigating. I didn't file it yet. So I'm like, okay. So, but even then I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't know. So I don't know if that was 2006 or 2007. I might have that in my records, but so 2007. Yeah. Sorry. Flipped a year. So that's 2007. Yeah. Okay. 2007. And we got no phone number for her. She got no contact. So come summer visitation, now under the Tennessee order, I'm supposed to send him back again. Right. But I can't because I don't know where. I got no phone number. And she's got this conflicting order. So I got no way to send him. So 2007 passes. And then the mail starts coming back. And because what we would do is I would send registered mail. So she had to sign for it. So she could never say that she didn't get a letter, right?
Yeah.
And so we start getting some, and it's not like undeliverable. It's refused. She's refusing the letters now, just flat out refusing them.
Okay.
And then 2008, the letters start coming back, right? And I Google her and I find out her house has gone up for sheriff's sale. So now no phone number, no physical address. I got no way to talk to her whatsoever. Then I find out that he's on the missing children's persons website. That's April 1st, 2008. And we're like, okay, well, that's not necessarily good, but I still haven't heard nothing. No lawyers have heard nothing. We don't know nothing. So we had moved to St. Kitts before that, actually. So we moved to St. Kitts before he was listed there.
I have to ask
so we're in St. Kitts. We find out
a father that obviously has his child with him, knows you're supposed to have his child, but now his face appears on a missing children's list. Did that give you just an immense amount of anxiety that somebody might see you out in public and like call the cops or take your child from you?
No.
Okay.
No. No, to be honest, the crazy thing she had already done, and if you want, we can go into the crazy thing. I mean, how the divorce happened and things, but the thing she had already done to me, it was like, okay, so that's the next thing. It really was.
And that is insane to me that this has been so crazy that to have your child on a missing persons list did not cause you anxiety. Like that says to the level of insanity that this has up to this point. And we are now from divorce to now 4 years. Your divorce started in 2002 or 2004?
No, the divorce was finalized in 2002. We separated early 2001. The divorce was finalized.
We're 6 years in right now. And at this point in time, that would
make
20.
seven if you want to count from the divorce. Let's go from separation. Okay. Because separation, things were already 7 years from separation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now you're
he's missing.
Continue on.
Okay, yeah. Well, he's listed as missing, and we're living in the Caribbean, and we don't know where she's at. But we're communicating with her mom. Her mom was a great woman, because when we first got married, we lived with her parents and her brothers and sisters and everything. So I knew her mom, and I kept in touch with her mom. Alex and I sometimes I would call Vecna. I call her Vecna as my nickname. So I used to call Vecna's mom and just talk to her. And even if Alex didn't want to talk to me, like, hey, this is what Alex is doing and how you doing. And she was a great person. And I talked to her all the way up until she died in, I forget, 2017, something like that. And Alex was calling her, maybe not as often as should have been, but it was his grandmother, right? But he called her a couple times a year, several times a year, at least maybe every 2 or 3 months. And they exchanged letters, and I have birthday cards from his grandmother. And then mind you, this is her mom. Meanwhile, she says he's kidnapped, and they don't know where he's at. So we're exchanging letters, and everything. We still don't know where she is. We don't know what she's up to, but he's listed as missing. So 2008 comes, I can't send him back again because I got no idea where she's at, right?
Yep.
So, I'm traveling all over Europe still. I'm working for Microsoft. I'm going, Germany and Ireland and all these places, no problem whatsoever. And 2009 rolls around. And in May 2009, unbeknownst to me, was a secret. And I didn't know this because there's a secret closed door court hearing in which none of my attorneys were notified, or even if they knew about it, were not allowed to go in. Okay. And the only witness was my ex-wife. And it's all sealed. And so in this, they issue an arrest warrant for me for kidnapping. And Pennsylvania never charged me with kidnapping. All Pennsylvania ever did was give her temporary custody. But now the FBI and the federal government have indicted me for kidnapping.
In a closed hearing that you were not allowed to go, your lawyers were not allowed to go, and nobody could represent you.
No.
And it was just her side of the evidence. Okay.
Yep. And people say, oh, the Americans said, no, it does do it. It's called a federal grand jury. And they were like, oh, yeah, we forgot about those, but it was a federal grand jury. So no, but that's how federal grand juries work. But usually they contact the other parties. Like you're watching. Now, I'm not going to get political. But with Trump, they even said they contacted him for his side of the story and that he's probably going to have something happen. Me, it was no contact. It was just boom, done. And I had no idea it was done at all. No inkling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even normal procedure. Normally leading up to a grand jury, you do contact their side, unless it's something like you're a spy or something really high profile or really dangerous. Otherwise, they contact the other attorneys on record to try and work things to even prevent from going to a federal grand jury. But none of that happened in my case.
Okay. So now you're
that happened in May.
Europe,
I got no idea.
Problem. This gets you're traveling freely throughout Europe. No problem. Anybody that's just joining, because I keep seeing the numbers go up, recap very quickly. Chad was granted custody of his child. There's been a back and forth. His ex-wife tried to change jurisdiction. He's got his child with him. No way to contact her. She has lost her house, shut off her phone. He's traveling freely, and in his absence is charged with kidnapping for a child that he has a custody order that he has full custody of. That's where we're at in our story.
And we forgot to mention how she got Pennsylvania to take jurisdiction over the case, didn't we?
By lying about
she told the judge. Yes, she told the judge he was born in Crawford County, Pennsylvania, and the judge didn't ask for any proof. And he was born in Hawkins County, Tennessee.
And I would think, just even on that, I would think in a second the court would pull up the child's social security number, which would give them their birth certificate. That seems like a very basic request when looking at custody. Not like we trust that this child is this old and lives here and was born here. We would need some evidence and some records.
The judge became a lawyer in the 1960s. So he's been, let's just say he's up there in years, and he don't give up.
Apparently. He doesn't care that a man is, been on the run for 20 years from the FBI. Okay, so now we're in Europe.
We've asked you to dismiss it numerous times.
This has been issued. What's the next thing that happens after this kidnapping order? You're charged with kidnapping by the FBI. Is that essentially what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm charged with kidnapping. So they issue an Interpol Red Notice. Now here's where it gets. Okay, I'm going to try and take this all step by step because I know how crazy all this sounds, but I want everybody to keep in mind I have court documents and news articles, stuff that can be pulled out of official records on all of this. Okay.
And you have sent me a ton
so
of
we're
it,
living here in the Caribbean.
A ton of it.
Mm-hmm. So we're living here in the Caribbean, and they know we're here in the Caribbean, by the way. The court records show that they know we lived in the Caribbean from March of 2008. Okay. So they know I'm here, but in May 2009, over a year, we've been already living here more than a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is when they issue this international arrest warrant. They knew where I am. They could have come to St. Kitts and tried to arrest me here. That would be the normal path. They didn't. Now, why do you think it is that they didn't come after me here in St. Kitts when they issued the arrest warrant if they knew where I was for more than a year now? Do you want to take a guess?
They didn't think St. Kitts would extradite you?
No. They wanted me to be in a nasty place somewhere else. They wanted me to be abroad where I couldn't defend myself very well. And they knew I traveled. Because if I'm home, I'll get home release and I'll have lawyers here. If they arrest me while I'm traveling, it's a lot harder to, help me if my wife is here and I'm in Europe and I got no place to live.
Okay.
Worse yet, since I was speaking for Microsoft, all my conference schedules were online. So everybody knew where I was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we went to France for about 3 months in 2009. After May, it was like June. So we went to France. They could have arrested me in France because they knew I was going to be in France. Plus, they have access to all my flight records because they're in court documents. They pulled all my flight records from around the world. And they're like, he was in France on these days. He was here. And they knew where I was all these times. I went to Belgium to speak. They didn't arrest me there. I went to the Netherlands to speak. They didn't arrest me there. We came back to St. Kitts. They didn't arrest me here. But you know where I was going in September? It was all over the internet. Bulgaria. They waited until I went to Bulgaria to issue the red notice. So not only would I not be on home turf, but so that I would be in a Bulgarian prison and just want to give myself up. Like when Sam Bankman-Fried went into the Bahamian prison, he was like, I'm going to fight this extradition. He was in there 2 days and then he was begging to be let out.
Okay. So
this is how deep and nasty it goes.
Mm-hmm. Experienced B cells. No, he did not issue his own. He did not kidnap his own son. He had a custody order in the state of Tennessee for his child when he took him abroad. And another one was issued in Pennsylvania. And then the FBI charged him with kidnapping. And Pennsylvania did not have jurisdiction over the custody order in Tennessee. Okay, so now you take your trip to Bulgaria. And what happens?
Oh, you want me to go now?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes there's a small delay, so just phrase it as a question so I know so I'm not stomping on you.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm in Bulgaria. I'm one of the key speakers, and I arrived, I think it was a Sunday. Anyways, I arrived one day in the speaker dinner and stuff, and then we were getting ready, and I was getting ready for one of the first sessions. And this was not my first trip to Bulgaria, by the way. I've been to Bulgaria several times. Alex has been to Bulgaria, and I worked with a bunch of Bulgarians. So it was not my first trip. And so I'm getting ready for a session. It's around 7 o'clock in the morning. I just gotten a message from one of my sisters that my grandfather died. So I was already pretty bummed out, but I had a session to give in about 90 minutes. So I just had to kind of repress that. And, there's a room with 1,000 people I got to go speak in front of. That's what I'm paid to do and got to deliver. So I push it down. I'm like, okay. And I get this knock on the door around 7 o'clock. And I thought it was one of their speakers because in the conference circuits, a lot of us go to the same conferences. Some of us have been to each other's houses. One of the guys was a friend of mine. I've been to his wedding. And so we knew a lot of each other. And so I thought it was one of them coming to the door to say, hey, let's go down to breakfast. And so I peeped through the peephole, and it wasn't any of my friends. It was four men and a woman all dressed in black, like leather jackets, dark clothing, and blue jeans. And that's already kind of tickling me because why? Who are these people here? And especially in Eastern Europe, sometimes they have these gangs, and it's not that common. You hear these stories. It's far less common than you'd think, but it does happen. And so I asked who they were, and they showed me a badge, and they said they were Bulgarian police. They were there from Interpol. Now, just because I don't want anybody coming on technicality, yes, technically they were Bulgarian intelligence. They were representing Interpol. So if I say they're from Interpol, no, they're not Interpol agents and those things. I know somebody always likes to get in the technicality, so I'm just saying that right now. Yes, they were Bulgarian intelligence, Bulgarian police acting on behalf of Interpol. But that's how it acts in every country. Interpol doesn't send agents into the United States. The FBI has people who represent Interpol. Okay, yes. So we're moving beyond that. So, but they say, hey, we're Bulgarian police and we're from Interpol. And they're like, we want to talk to you. And I'm like, well, about what? And so I cracked the door open, but I had the chain on. And they're like, we want to talk to you about your son. And I'm like, oh, not this again. Because leading up to this, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow had contacted us. They actually sent the FSB, KGB. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing because somebody's always going to drop in the comments, the KGB doesn't exist anymore, the FSB. They just renamed, okay? Done with it. So they had contacted, they showed up at my wife's parents' house in Russia looking for us, and they had the U.S. Embassy in Cyprus contacting me. So now they've got multiple countries, and they say they want to do a welfare check on the child. And I'm like, well, here's where I am, and I don't see any need. I got better things to do than, come drive or fly to your embassy, whichever one you're talking about. And so every time they'd go away. And they're like, okay, well, we asked for a visit. We didn't get it, but we know where the father is. Okay, all good. But it got to the level. And I even have a court record showing where they contacted the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, contacted the Russian government to track me down. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the stupid thing is they say they're revealing things, but they knew where we were. They said they had to contact the embassy to find information about my wife, but they didn't have to do that because we were married in Cyprus and my wife had a U.S. visa. So they knew who my wife was and her passport, everything. But they made this big stink about how they had to investigate this using the Russian government. So we knew. I mean, I have court records showing this. Mm-hmm. And so when these Bulgarian police came, I'm just like, oh, it's this again. But I'd never had they'd sent a personal visit in Russia. They sent the KGB FSB. And so I just thought it was kind of that. But I'm like, this is unusual. They're sending it to where I'm in Bulgaria. But I just thought it was just more of that. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to tell you where he's at. Here I am. And they're going to go away and, but it's another level. I still wasn't even anxious yet. It was like when he was missing, right?
Yes.
And I know how strange that sounds, but all the stuff that's been going on these years. And then they're like, well, you got to come down to the police station. We're going to talk down to the police station. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I got a session in an hour and a half. And they're like, you're going to need to cancel it. There were 4 men and a woman. They brought a woman to translate. So the 4 dudes were all armed. And she was a police officer, but they just basically said, look, we need somebody to speak English. So they grabbed her from the police station. But she was a police officer, but she wasn't Bulgarian intelligence or whoever the other ones were. But I'm like, that's a lot of people to be coming asking about my son. But I knew that sometimes in these countries, when the Americans ask something, they like to put on a show. They're like, hey, the Americans, look, we're responding. And I thought it was just kind of that. Mm-hmm. And I still thought, okay, we're going to go down to the police station. I'm going to have a chat. I missed my first session. And so I said, I got to tell the organizer that I'm not going to be there. But I had another session in the afternoon. I thought I was going to be back by lunch. I really did. And so they're like, okay, let's go down to the police station. We're going to have a chat and explain everything, and then we'll deal with it. And so I was in my underwear. So I said, okay, well, let me dress. And they said, bring your passport and, a jacket and just stuff like that. They didn't say grab nothing else. So I grabbed almost nothing. And we went out in the hallway, and now I'm noticing that, they're all armed. And I'm noticing that there's two in front of me and two in back of me. And I don't know where Veronica went, the lady, but they're surrounding me. Like, this isn't like, hey, let's go down to the police station. This is like hey, we think you're dangerous. We don't want to handcuff you because we don't want the whole hotel to really know what's going on yet. But you're coming with us and you're not running. So this is where I'm starting to think, I'm starting to think this is not necessarily going to go down the way I'm hoping.
Yeah, I was going to say,
still
what's
not
going
committed to
through
that
your
yet.
mind at this point in time?
I'm thinking that stupid Vecna. Really. I'm just like, what kind of superpower she got that, this is still going on. So we're walking down the hallway and there's two, so they put me in the back of a black unmarked car in the center. And we go, and I notice there's another car. So they didn't bring just 5 people for me. I forget how many in the car, but they brought like 8 people to capture me. And they're all armed. So we get to the police station, and basically they're like, well, here's the deal. You're wanted for kidnapping, and we're Interpol. I'm like, I'm wanted for what? Because up until now, I thought we were just talking about, the same stuff. And now I found out I've actually been charged for kidnapping by the FBI, and there's an Interpol red notice for me. So they asked me to write a statement, and I wrote a statement, and they sent it off, and we waited, and then that night they arrested me, and they stuck me in a Bulgarian jail cell with 3 other people for the night, none of whom spoke English. It was wet. I have Arrested by Interpol I'm doing on TikTok right now, and I'm up to part 23, and I talked about this today. So I'm in this jail cell for the night with some other people, and the next day they take me to a Bulgarian prison. And the next 3 months between transits and re-pickups and rearrests, I spent 3 months in and out of 5 different Bulgarian prisons during the extradition procedures. The extradition was denied by Bulgaria because, the charges, they say that I removed a child from the United States November 6, 2006. But not only did I have full custody, but neither he or I were in the United States November 6, 2006. And the last time he was in the United States was on September 2nd, when a judge had to remove him from her using police and put him on a plane to return to me. So I'm confused. Is it the sheriff's office or the judge who kidnapped him, since they were the last ones who removed him from the United States and neither of us was there on the accused date?
That is, yeah.
While you think about that,
his...
I need, because of the kidneys, I need to pee a lot. So I need to take a quick pee break. So go ahead and talk, and I'll be back in just a minute.
Okay.
But go ahead and talk.
I will keep talking. So there's a lot of people in the comment section I've seen asking some questions. And there was one person particularly that was asking about the custody and had he ever been returned. As you just heard him say, his child was kidnapped by his ex-wife when he had full custody. The judge removed him and took him to the airport and put him on a plane and sent him internationally. It is in his Tennessee custody order that he has permission to take his child abroad. And that Tennessee order was for full custody. And so he had permission to do so, and was bringing him back for summer visitation with his mother, in which she then kidnapped him and refused to return him. He was not deported. Chad has never been back in the United States since. And he'll have to tell you where his son is now. I mean, his son is a full-grown adult. What did you just join? So we have Chad, who is actually taking a restroom break, and Chad is taking a restroom break because he has some kidney issues. Chad is an international fugitive that is wanted by the FBI and has been wanted by the FBI since 2008. He was granted full custody for his child in Tennessee. At the time he was granted full custody for his child, within the custody order was that he was allowed to take his child to live internationally because his job required him to live and travel internationally. When his ex-wife, the child's mother, had the child for a visitation time, she kidnapped the child and refused to return him. The judges, along with the police in the United States, got the child and put the child on a plane back to where he was internationally. And he has had him ever since. In his absence in the United States, there was a hearing with the federal government in which a kidnapping he was charged with kidnapping. And where we're at now in the story is he is being put in and out of a Bulgarian prison.
5 different Bulgarian prisons.
Okay,
None of them were very good.
Continue now with your story.
Okay, so they tried to extradite me twice from Bulgaria, and they were turned down. And this is the story that can turn into a 5 or 6 hour story, so I'm going to glance over it. But I was able to return home to the Caribbean here. See, the prosecutor, one of the things is he said that after the extradition failed in Bulgaria, is that I fled to the Caribbean. He makes it look like I'm a Caribbean fugitive. But the problem is, we lived in the Caribbean almost 2 years before I was arrested in Bulgaria. So when the extradition was denied, I didn't flee to the Caribbean. I just came back home. I had a 1-month-old daughter when I left. So I was coming home. And I
think that's one of the things that everybody that hasn't heard your story needs to know. In the midst of all of this happening, you've gotten married to an amazing woman and started a family where you're raising another child and your son in a happy household.
2 more.
And additional children all together as a family as this is all going on.
Yep. And then I started getting sick.
So your extradition is refused from Bulgaria. They won't, and you come back, but the U.S. paints it as now you're running to the Caribbean, even though that's where your residence has been for multiple years. And you were traveling to Bulgaria for work at a work conference.
Yep.
Did you lose your job over this?
Oh, yeah. My whole career has been destroyed. My finances, my health. I had a senior position at Microsoft in a territory of 85 countries. I was a Microsoft regional director. I was a 12-year MVP. I had a good job at Microsoft.
Okay, so now that you're back.
It was my dream job.
Now that you're back in St. Kitts, what happens? Did they come for you there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you about all that. Sorry. Okay, so... Okay, so while I'm in Bulgarian prison, oh yeah, this gets good. So while I'm in Bulgarian prison, they send an RSO, a regional security officer from the U.S. Embassy in Barbados, which is about 600 miles away, like 10 countries away, to St. Kitts to try and take my 13-year-old son, Alex. And yes, we have court records of this too, and he talks about it in his news interviews. They tried to abduct him. They were following him on the street. They checked into a hotel, said it's a reservation for 1, but I'll have a child tomorrow. And then they come to the door and they threaten to cut the burglar bars off and take him out of the house. Now, I'm in prison in Bulgaria when this happens. So we get the police here involved. And long story short, that RSO was asked to leave the country within 24 hours or be diplomatically expelled by the Attorney General of St. Kitts. So he buggered on home. And then Vecna, my ex-wife, shows up down here a few days later. Now, her passport's been revoked because she owes me like $40,000 in child support. So a federal judge overrode the passport block from Tennessee and gave her passport back. Oh, and they found a fund that the FBI funds with NCMEC to pay for her flight, hotel, lawyer, and international cell phone. So now she's got a free vacation in the Caribbean. So she shows up at his school and says, I'm the mom, I'm taking him. And the school is like, who are you? And she's like, I'm the mom. And he's like, yeah, it's my mom, but she don't live here, and I live with my dad. And so the school wouldn't let him take him. So then we had to go to court here. And she got turned down here, but she had visitation rights while she was here.
And how long did
instead
she
of
stay there?
visiting and staying with her, she was here about a week.
Okay.
But the thing is, she could have stayed longer because she didn't remarry. She had nothing to get back to, no job, no nothing. And the FBI is paying her full fare here, and she had an open ticket. But as soon as the court turned her down, instead of staying a few days in the Caribbean with your son on a beach while you have visitation rights every other day, supposedly since you don't know where your son is, supposedly since you haven't seen him in like 3 years, you say, what'd she do? She takes off the very next day.
So
and
she
then
could have
never
spent time
calls
with her
him.
child and chose not to.
And she never came back. She never came back. In fact, she didn't even send a letter for over 10 years. And then we had a letter in 2021. That was the first letter in over 10 years. And then they try and extradite me from St. Kitts, and that fails too. And I've been stuck here since.
And so now your son is an adult now. And can he travel freely? You can go
26.
nowhere outside of there, because the second you do, you risk being arrested again because of the Interpol Red Notice that still exists. You have
Correct.
gone through extradition in 3 different countries, and none of them will extradite you. You have all of the court documentation at this point in time to back up that you legally should have your child, and your child will also stand there as an adult and say, I was never kidnapped and this should happen. And yet the FBI
He
will
has
not
on ABC and Fox.
you know what? I watched the interviews with him. And the FBI will not look at this. And if you leave to get the medical treatment you need, you're going to end up in jail, which means you're not going to get the treatment that you need. And you could get much sicker. So that's where we're at. So the point of you continually being on TikTok and doing these lives is to hope to get the attention of somebody that is loud and proud on national media that can actually possibly hear this. Yes, Lily said that's exactly it. He's either jailed or dead at this point in time. He cannot, the island that he's on does not have the capability to treat his medical problems. So if he cannot get to a country that can treat him, he's ultimately going to die of something that would be treatable in a higher level hospital. But if he leaves, he ends up in jail, and his medical situation could get so much worse because particularly in certain countries, they just don't treat you at all in jail. And they're just like, oops, sorry, he died.
Like the Americas.
Now, where is your son at? Is he living with you now, or where's he at? Because he's 20, he's in his 20s, right?
He's 26. He'll be 27 pretty soon. Mm-hmm. He lived with us until last year. But now he lives down the road. He's got his own place, but he lives pretty close by.
Okay. And what is your son's opinion? What is your son's thoughts on all of this situation? Because he's been here every step of the way. He knows what's happening to you. What is his view of, obviously, the United States government, and what's happened? Because from his standpoint, being the fact that he has chosen at his age to stay living right down the street and close to his family, he obviously has a great relationship with you, his brothers and sisters, your wife, your family. What is his view on all of this?
Well, I'm going to answer that, but I want you all to know the whole time he was listed as missing, his missing poster only went down last year when he was 26. During that time, they renewed his passport in 2019, in which he had to meet the U.S. Embassy twice. And so his opinion is, I don't know exactly, but I don't think he trusts the U.S. government, but he travels to the U.S. pretty frequently. He has had a few travel incidents where there have been bumps crossing borders. I can't get into details, but it still affects him. And he's basically, his problem now is that he's a very private person. He always has been. And I think probably because of the situation, because they attempted to kidnap him. And he knows he was there when they tried to take him. Yeah. And he had to go to court against his mom in St. Kitts. So he knows. And I've always given him all the court orders. I've never hidden, anything from him. Everything's always been access to him, but he's been through this. And he knew I was in Bulgarian prison. He's gone through all that. And he did those 2 news interviews on ABC and Fox. And then the thing is, they went viral, especially when they got posted here in the Caribbean. There was like millions and millions of views, and he was getting recognized everywhere he went. They're like, yo, you're the kidnapped kid, right? And him being a very private person, now he said he's not doing no more media interviews, and he said what he had to say, and he's changed his hair up a bit. He just doesn't want to be recognized. So he's just kind of, I guess this is his way of dealing with it, but horrible position to be in.
It's an absolutely horrible position to be in. I can't imagine walking down the street and saying, hey, you're the kidnapped kid and your dad's a fugitive. That's got to have impacted his mental health throughout his life and his ability to have healthy relationships. It's got to have all of these major implications. And from my standpoint, I don't understand how now that he is an adult, I don't understand how his mother cannot recognize that she has the ability to call off the dogs. She has the ability to allow her adult son to have freedom to live his life without media attention if she made this stop.
Let me fill you in there. She does recognize, but she does not want to stop. This is not about her son. This is about how bitter she is at me for something I don't know what. And 2 of her lawyers, after they quit her, came to me and told me, they said she doesn't care about your son. She only hates you. And if you read the letters I've posted from her, you will see that. She sent a letter to the Pennsylvania judge in 2021. First of all, she says she's too poor to type because she doesn't have a computer, and the library won't let her stay that long. So she apologizes for handwriting a pen letter to the judge, and she always does this garbage. And she says that it's unfair that I took her to court in 2021 to dismiss the Pennsylvania case, because it created undue financial burden on her, because even postage and copies are an undue financial burden on her. And then she says she can't afford a county-to-county call, and the judge should call her because she can't afford long distance between counties. And she asks, this is where the crown of the whole thing is. She asks the judge, as he's dismissing the case, she asks the judge to add additional sanctions to me and that she wants reparations. And this is 2021.
But isn't she still like
And my son
$40,000 outstanding in child
asked her
support
to
that she
dismiss
never
the case.
paid you?
Oh yeah, 40,000, but the Pennsylvania court, the same judge keeps blocking enforcement of child support.
Because we feel bad for the mom.
No, because he wants to cover himself up. They know what they've done. People won't say, oh, this is some paperwork mistake. This is no mistake. This was intentional from the get-go. There is no way that you can get 3 or 4 people to be so stupid and so bumbling in coordination for this to have happened. The only other alternative is this was intentional. In the sense they knew what they were doing, because we have the court record showing that even what they're filing is false. They knew what they were doing from the get-go.
So at this point in time, there's really no hope of an outcome unless the FBI decides to drop this. And the only
the
chance
prosecutor, but the prosecutor is representing the FBI. So a small technicality, but yes, it's the prosecutor who needs to take the action, but he's acting on behalf of the FBI.
Now, do you have that prosecutor's number and name and information? And the reason why is
it's all over the website.
You have lots of people that are standing behind you, lots of people that are watching these lives, lots of people that are doing this. One, I have a question. Has a what's it called?
Letter writing campaign?
Yeah, a letter writing campaign ever been initiated where there is a website that is quickly set up that has downloadable format letters that people could quickly load these letters, pop them into an email, and start mass emailing this senator or this judge?
I'd rather have them get me on Joe Rogan or somebody big. And I'd rather have them get me on Joe Rogan or something like that. And here's why. The FBI is actively telling reporters they can't talk to a fugitive, because we have had the press contact the FBI and they tell the reporter, you can't talk to a fugitive, it's illegal, we can charge with aiding and abetting, even though it's not, because they talked to Snowden or Assange, and then they bugger off. So we know they're buggering off media. But this prosecutor won't care how many letters you send him. My mother is blinded in a hospital bed. I haven't seen her over 10 years. He's been calling her, or she's been calling him, and he won't take her calls. They don't take most press calls. He wants this dead and buried. The very last thing he wants is any light on this. So media is the outlet. And plus, he'll probably turn around and charge me with harassing him or stalking him or something.
Okay. Because what I'm trying to do is figure out how we get you the media coverage that you need so that we can potentially put pressure on the judge and the FBI to do something for you. And the one thing that I am very good at, that my background in history is marketing. So I would like to spend some time to add an add-on page to my website that would have all of these resources that people can be contacting on your behalf, where we can put form letters that are downloadable, that we can then perpetually discuss that go to this URL, download this letter, send it to this person, download this letter, send it to this person, so that these news outlets and stuff are continually getting this. Because that to me seems like the only possibility and the only chance that you have is to just continually put pressure on it. And the talking and the telling the story is great, but the actually asking people, because every time I popped into your lives and stuff, just in the comment section, I see that you've got a huge mass of supporters that are like, help this guy. I mean, I told you, I get people harassing me to do a live with you consistently, to the point that some of them are mean about it. But you nor I have the capability to do this, but we do have the capability to I have a website, to put a page on the website that has all of this information on it.
And if they get enough letters, what the idea is that if you overwhelm them, they just get tired of getting these massive amounts of mail.
That's what I'm saying. So
then they're forced to do something.
Yeah. So you're saying that the judge doesn't care and he's getting messages from your mom, but can you imagine that he'd care if he showed up every day in his office and had the prosecutor and had 300 emails every single morning about dropping Chad's case, about allowing you to get the medical care?
Yeah.
And if at the
I'm
same
all for it.
time
I
we
just
pick
think that a better target would be his boss.
what, well, here's the thing: when somebody's sending an email, we can put 2 email addresses. Like, click these 2 email addresses, fill this out, and add both of these email addresses to your header. Drop this letter in, which we can work on a letter that should be written. Drop this letter in and send it off to them. In the meantime, here are the news. Here are the email addresses for Joe Rogan and these 7 news outlets. Drop this letter and send
I'm
it
all for
to
it.
them with all of that. And I can put that all in a package together in the next week. We can work together to kind of get these letters written and put it up so that every single time you post a video about this, every single time you do a live about this, at that point in time, you put that information with that URL, and I'll name it, it'll be the Manicured Mom / get Chad help, or bring Chad, get Chad's medical, whatever we choose it to be. That'll be the URL, and it'll have all of the information that people that are wanting your voice to be heard, wanting you to get the help you need, can act on your behalf, because there's power in numbers. And that's the one thing we know. And all of the lies and all of the information help, people. But getting the people to act is how we help you. And that's what I see as the only chance you have. And I know that that's what you've been fighting for, but that's what I can offer, is to attempt to put this together for you so that it's easy for people to know exactly. Because Joe sending one email and somebody else sending another email onesie twosie doesn't help. But when you're daily asking hundreds of people to send emails on your behalf and reminding them, I know you sent one last week, do it again, do it again, do it again. It takes 2 seconds for somebody to resend a form letter. And we can make that really, really super easy. And I'll look at my programming capability to see if I have a click a button to forward this email type of thing. I don't know if I can manage that, but at least I can put them in downloadable format so they can copy and paste them to send them out. And I know that that's what many do. The other thing has there ever been a petition created for you? A change.org?
Yeah, there was one back in, not change.org. There was one, I forget, you can still find it, from something from like 2010, but it didn't go anywhere. It was Facebook. And so nothing recent.
Change.org would be also a really good one as well, because you can also tag people in the change.org. So every time if they get a signature, that organization gets an email. So every time someone signs it, they get a beep, 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 beep in their email.
Okay, well, if somebody could set that up, because as you know, most days I often struggle to even just sit up in a chair. And so even now I'm dealing with a lot of pain, but I took a lot of pain medication, and it's a low pain today, but the pain can get so bad that I can barely talk. When I first started TikTok about 8 months ago, my daughter wrote crayon. She took crayon and made signs, and I was holding up signs because I couldn't talk. So I have limited abilities, even technically, even though I used to work at Microsoft, I haven't programmed in over 2 years. So if somebody can set that up, that would be great.
I absolutely can. I have an extremely busy day of meetings tomorrow, but tomorrow evening and part of the day on Thursday, I will spend some time putting up a change.org for you. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write some potential letters that I will send to you that I'm going to need you to, I'll send them to you so that you can copy and paste them, that I'm going to need you to edit. And then I'm going to need you to work on providing me with the email addresses of the prosecutor and his boss, as well as anybody else that we think these letters should go to. And then I will look for contacts at news outlets that I think that this should go out to, so that we can start an actual valid campaign. Because there's a lot of talk, but I don't feel like anybody has actually taken action to make it happen for you. And I feel like, and I hope I'm not stepping on your toes doing that, but I feel like with my background in marketing, I have the capability to attempt to at least give you a platform that makes it easy for people to act on your behalf.
Yeah.
I can't even take a shower every day, so just run, take it and run.
Tammy, TJ did say that they would do the change.org if you needed them to.
I'm
TJ's one of my admins, so what I'll do is I just need to put you in touch.
Put me in touch.
So I'll put you in touch with TJ and somebody else who have the legal documents and can fill in all this stuff for you, basically.
Okay. TJ, get me on my get me on any one of my accounts that I follow you back on. And we can exchange
They're one of
information
my
and work
mods.
this all out.
They're one of my mods too.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the biggest thing that I want to do is give you give you something that we can help you with. And I know the lives help get your story out, but I don't feel like they're having the impact that you need.
Exactly.
And I know that your
it's amazing that I have
situation is getting worse and worse and
157,000
worse.
followers.
And
157,000 followers. 3 weeks ago, I had 9 million view a week. I had 4 videos that broke the 2 million barrier in 2 days. And yet I'm still here begging for my life.
But I think Tammy's got a great point where if people know, you have to make it really easy for people. People are inherently, I hate to say it, very lazy. And if you ask them to write their own letter, they're not going to do it. However, if she has a template up and all they have to do is sign their name and that's all they have to do, they're more likely to do it. And the thing with change.org that's so great is that, like I said, if you link certain organizations or people, anytime that place gets a signature, it gets a ping and a ping and a ping. And it doesn't sound like that's, a lot, but annoying people, it's amazing what annoying people can get you.
Yeah. And if we...
Yeah, just ask my ex-wife.
In addition to doing that, if we get together with groups of content creators and ask them to put the same exact message out to multiple people across multiple, we create a kind of a plea for your life to people to please go on and read this information, send these letters, because your life is at stake right now. And the mental health of your son is at stake, to be able to live a life without this surrounding his adult life, because he's been going through this since he's been a small child. And at some point in time, somebody has to listen. And the louder we get about it, the more that they will continue to listen, and the more people that will get involved and hear about it. Because as you know, you get an audience, but outside of your audience, there's 10,000 people that don't know about this. And you get a video with 1 million views, but those people saw that video once and they forget about it. It was like, oh, that was cool, I like that video. And then they scroll on and they don't continue to remember. So I think it has to be a thing where there's multiple creators talking about this. And I'm going to try to reach out to some of the larger creators that I know to see if we can get them at least to put up videos about the petition, and put up videos about, and I know that you did a live with Lauren, the Dadvocate, to see if she'll come back, swoop back around and
bathroom
put
break.
up a video.
If I just disappear, if I just walk off, it's a bathroom break. I'll come back. Just keep talking.
Okay. Yeah. But I think that if we could get some of the creators like that, like, I'll contact Lauren, like Machuli, like some of the decent sized creators, to at least put up that video that talks about the change.org, that talks about the letters that can be sent on his behalf in order to assist the situation. I think that at least gets the story out there more than what we're doing sitting here on a live, which the live is great. And it allows people to kind of hear the story and hear the insanity of this. I am still at this point absolutely baffled that,
but it's amazing what
custody in Tennessee, full custody, and written in the court order that he was allowed to take his child abroad. And
it's amazing what change.org can do. Mm-hmm. I think people underestimate it, but honestly, some of those petitions, what people don't realize is it's not just a signature on the petition. It's also dinging whoever you link it to.
Yeah. So somebody asked what the topic is today. I'll go through the general gist of the story again. The topic is, up here you see the picture of Chad. Chad is actually on a restroom break. Chad has kidney problems and some other things going on with his health. He is in St. Kitts Island. There's a Interpol Red Alert out for him because of a kidnapping charge by the FBI. The problem with the kidnapping charge by the FBI, that if he leaves the country, he will be arrested, is that Tennessee's family court issued him custody of his child when his child, and in the court order states that he was allowed to and would be taking his child to live internationally. In his absence from the United States, at one point in time, his wife kidnapped his child, did not return him to him at the time. The judges physically went and sent police to the house to pick up the child and put him on a plane to send him internationally. Illegally, or not illegally, corruptly. I'd say corruption within the government allowed a kidnapping charge to be filed against Chad. And for years, he has been living in St. Kitts Island, where his son also lives and is 26 years old, with the inability to leave in a place that doesn't have the medical care he needs. And now it's extremely important that we get the eyes of the media on this story to put pressure on the prosecutor to drop these charges so he can get the medical attention that he needs to save his life. Because if this doesn't happen, his life will be lost over this situation when it is perfectly capable that he could get treatment elsewhere, just not in the small island in the Caribbean that he lives.
I think it's a really important point to make that this could be wiped out in 1 second if the ex-wife or wife or ex-wife just would drop the charge.
I doubt, to be honest, even if she said she wanted to dismiss it, I don't think they would at this point because of how far they dug in. Has to come from the prosecutor. But you're almost right, because the prosecutor could dismiss this at will and has been asked too many times. He could dismiss this tomorrow, and the paperwork might take a week or two, but he could have this done tomorrow if he wanted, but he chooses not to. He has my medical reports. He Googled my condition and said, you can live with one kidney, suck it. And the thing is, the problems with both my kidneys, it's not just one, but this is the kind of stuff that he does. And that was in 2022. And I have court records and transcripts of all of that. Mm-hmm. One thing I wanted to add too, and then I'll let you talk and get is another problem I have is when it's me talking about me, I have a big barrier because people are like, yeah, right. And I got to get them to watch a whole lot of videos. Then they're on board. When somebody else talks about me, it's like, oh, really? So just the fact that a third party makes videos about me lends credibility, and which is why I've been trying to get people to make more videos. And so this idea of getting all these creators, yes, absolutely, because then it'll blow up.
I've got a video idea, and anybody that's in here that supports Chad, reach out to me on IG because I have a video idea, and I would love to get a ton of creators to do a I stand with Chad, please help us type of thing where it's one after another. We'll figure out what it says, that it's all the same thing, that 50 creators can post the same exact video, which then also tags your page to get more people to go to your page, because we all know we have different audiences and we have different people. And the more we can get that out there, the more that will help. There's lots of ideas that we can use when it comes to, I hate to say it, but marketing your cause, because that's really what you need. You need to be marketed. And marketing is my wheelhouse.
One interesting stat is that
30-year career in marketing.
85% of my followers are male. But on all my viral videos above 100,000, which is like 50 of them, they're over half female. So I don't know where I get that skew, but I seem to have I'm fine for both, but if we can tap into that market, that's a huge, it could blow my account up too. Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to reach. So one of the contacts that I have is I do have a lot of women that are in the father's rights movement that I work with, that literally are in the father's rights movement because they are stepmoms to children that have been through this court system and are fighting for their husbands. And I think that, and they deal with a lot of their audience is women. And I think getting some of them involved may also help. I'm giving Lisa a follow too.
Well, if you have other questions, or there's a lot of other areas I haven't even taught. I mean, the stuff I told you is, out there, but there's a lot more details you want to dive in, because there was Bulgarian prison.
Got time. So
there was the time they swatted our apartment.
Tell us what you think is important for people to know, because this live is also going to be put on YouTube. I'll probably take out some of the stuff about, the marketing and the advertising and stuff, but your part of the story is what's going to go in the YouTube video when I mark it all together and put it out there.
Okay. Well, so that I don't get accused of being long-winded, because I know the past of all these questions, why don't you pick an area and kind of target me, and I'll do like we did before. I'll answer not too long, but I'll leave enough holes that you can dig into what you want.
So I know that at one point in time you said that the KGB was involved, and I would love to know about that.
Okay. Well, basically what they did is before all this was, I can look it up. I have it on the computer, but I'm not there right now. So this is, I think, 27, I think it's 2007, may have been 2008.
Mm-hmm.
They contacted the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, and the reason we know this is both that it happened and it's in one of the court records. They actually wrote it there, and they wanted to perform what they call a welfare check. And it's an excuse to kind of come be intrusive. And they were basically pretending like they didn't know where the child was, but saying they had her address and they wanted to come visit him to see if he's okay, while pretending that they don't know where he's at. So first of all, it doesn't make any sense at all. But just to harass us, because my wife's parents had a house in St. Petersburg and the embassy's in Moscow. But there was a consulate in St. Petersburg. They could have sent somebody from the St. Petersburg consulate. And they had our address anyways, because when we lived in Russia, that was our address. And I had registered with the U.S. Embassy. So the U.S. Embassy had the address because that's where I lived when I was in Russia. But no, they had the KGB/FSB show up instead, just to be intimidating.
Okay.
Now, when they showed up, I wasn't actually there. My wife's parents were, and they used to work for the government and had security clearance. So the KGB FSB really didn't bother them, and they just kind of asked them questions and they kind of left. But they were clearly there to intimidate and harass me, and that was the goal of it. But they weren't really going to bother me because my wife's parents had already been, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole right now, but her parents worked in a military factory and they had security clearance. So me living in Russia in the early 2000s and being married to their daughter put me on a watch list. So I'd already had some encounters with the KGB, but they're always friendly.
Mm-hmm.
If again, KGB, they're called the FSB now, but all Westerners know it as KGB. Yeah, technically in 1990 they came to the FSB. But I'd already been, when I came in and out of Russia a lot, I always got extra checks. Sometimes they'd pull me aside to an office and sit me down for a few minutes, ask me a few questions. But it always ended in, do you know why we're asking you extra questions? Or do you know you're on our watch list? And they'd be like, yes, I do. And they'd be like, do you know why? Yes, because my wife's parents, they have security clearance. And like, okay, no problem. Thanks for being cooperative. That was it. I never had any problems. Not one time, never. Even one time they picked me up from the airport to ask me, and they're like, well, we'll ask you a few questions and we'll give you a ride home. I'm like, cool. So yeah, it's an interesting story, but you know, they all knew where I was. They always knew where we were. I mean, come on. I'm on the KGB watch list. They picked me up from an airport one time, and you're telling me they don't know our address in Russia where the child is? I mean, give me a freaking break.
Yeah. So now I have another question, because it just dawned on me. We know that that they refused to extradite you from St. Kitts. They refused to extradite you from Bulgaria, but you said there was a third place that they refused to extradite you from.
Oh,
where is that?
I said three times, two countries. They tried twice in Bulgaria.
3 times 2 countries. Okay. I thought there was
because it failed in Bulgaria. And it failed, and the U.S. Embassy wasn't happy. So they appealed it up to a higher court. And then when that failed again, they bribed a police officer to try and keep me in the country so they could arrest me when my visa expired. Yeah, this whole thing, it's nuts.
What is your, and I'm sure you don't know, you may not know the answer to this, but what is your ex-wife's reasoning for why she did not contact your child for 10 years and then showed up in St. Kitts expecting to just take him after 10 years of no contact?
No, that's almost, no, she didn't have any contact with them, so she fell off the grid early 2008. She fell off the grid. We had no contact.
Okay.
But we still had contact with her mom. And then she showed up a year and a half later here, where the 10 years is. So it was a year and a half that she said she didn't know where I was, and then she showed up here. She was here in 2009. The 10 years is she sent some letters in 2010 and 2011 after she left. But then she never sent a letter again until 2021 when Pennsylvania dismissed the case. A couple weeks later, a letter showed up. And the whole time she's still saying she doesn't know where he is, but she didn't even send a letter for over 10 years. But during that 10 years, her mom, his grandmother, sent letters. I posted a video. One of my viral videos is me holding a stack of letters from her and his grandmother. And it's like 4 inches thick.
So, I mean, so she knew all along, but she has yet to attempt to continue to contact her own child and holds this out of her bitterness, anger, and resentment towards you. So this is basically a personal vendetta towards you to destroy not just your life, but your son's life and your new family's life, because you have 3 other children, correct? And a lovely wife.
No, 3 total. So him
3,
plus
so
2 others. So 3 total.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're still under 18. So
And do they grasp and really understand what's
Oh,
going
yeah.
on, or are they
Yeah.
unshielded from it?
No, they completely know, because I've been front page headlines down here numerous times. I'm a tourist attraction, in fact. When I was healthy enough, I haven't been able to leave the house much the last 2 years. I've been out of the house like 3 or 4 times in the last year. But when I used to go to my favorite beach hideaway, the locals, when the cruise ships, because the cruise ships are here almost every day, and we get tourists, the locals would send a cruise ship to us, be like, yo, you see that dude over there? He's wanted by the FBI for like 20 years on kidnapping and something. Why don't you go talk to him? You're like, no way. And they'd come over, and, because Americans are always real polite in foreign countries, and they come over and be like, listen, I don't really think this is true. And the only reason I'm coming over and telling you this is this gentleman said something about you. It's not very nice. And since you live here, I thought you should know what he's saying about you. And I would usually save them the grief. Sometimes I'd play them a little bit, string them out, be like, but usually, because that happens so often, I'd be like, did you say I'm wanted by the FBI and the Interpol's after me and I'm wanted for kidnapping for like 20 years? He's like, yeah, that's it. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. You want to talk? Buy me a beer. Let's talk. And so, that happened numerous times, because I've been front page, and I've made TikToks where I've posted the front page headlines from St. Kitts News saying who I am down here. So yeah, my kids know, everybody knows. You could get off a plane here and say, where's the FBI fugitive? And it wouldn't take 5 people to figure out where I'm at. My sister, I said, just approved her. I had her send me a postcard, put my name on it, put St. Kitts, no address, no nothing, right? And the U.S. Post Office didn't want to take it because they said it wasn't complete. So she convinced me, she said, listen, just take it, let St. Kitts sort it out, because you don't care. You just get it there, they sort it out, right? It got to me. They hand delivered it to me at a place I was volunteering at the time. So the Post Office brought it straight to me. So that's how small this place is. And, everybody knows everything. And my daughter, a couple years ago, when she was like 10 or 11, the schools are small here. So when I say she goes to school with the ambassador's kids, it's not a flex. Everybody's kids goes to the, okay. So, but one of the ambassador's kids came to her when she was like 10 or 11. She's like, is your dad wanted by the FBI? Because somebody tell me so. And she's like, yeah. He's like, I don't believe you. So he went home and asked his dad, who was one of the ambassadors, came back to school the next day. He's like, yeah, your dad is wanted by the FBI. I guess it's cool, huh? So yeah, they know.
I just had a weird thought. I don't know if this would pertain to this, but Doctors Without Borders. Is there
We've
any
flown
way?
in. No, here's the problem. We flew a surgeon in 2015 who removed a 30 millimeter kidney stone. And he saved my life. The problem is the equipment that I need now is big and heavy. So, it's like, it's not portable. It's not something can ship in. It's something that needs a dedicated facility to be installed. You need a technician. It's not a portable surgery. I need to go somewhere. Plus, I got some other issues that we ain't identified yet. I need an MRI, which we don't have at the hospital here yet. Supposedly we got one, but we just recently got one, but it's not installed yet. And even if I go for an MRI, if they find other things wrong, they can't deal with it here anyways. Now I just got 2 things to worry about. So I don't care. I'm not going to go into an MRI unless I'm somewhere where they can do it after the MRI.
Where would be
Okay,
your
I
destination of choice to get to?
Yeah. Sorry, again?
Where would be your, if you could travel to get medical care, where would you choose to go to?
Well, based on where I have air ambulance coverage too, it's probably going to be one of the French islands, Guadeloupe or Martinique, I can't remember which one, or Jamaica or someplace, just because that's where I have air ambulance coverage too.
And so explain to me the process. Like, if you travel there, then Interpol, once you get there, could potentially arrest you, and you'd have to go through the entire extradition process. Is there any type of
I agree.
pre-clearance medical waiver that you could ask for in one of these countries to come in for medical, necessary medical care? I don't know if that exists, and I don't know if I'm sure that's been a consideration, but I'm just asking that question.
Yeah. We've not only tried that, but with the way they've acted in my case all these years, it's very clear they'll go to long extents to cover this up, to the point that you have trouble believing this is just a custody case. Because how many people have tried to be extradited 3 times under custody, tried to kidnap my son? Oh, and there was a time that it looks like they were trying to kidnap me as well. I can't prove it, but I do have some documents, and it looks like they were planning an attempt to kidnap me as well after the extraditions failed. Who am I that I'm so important that they just keep coming forever? But the point I want to make isn't so much that, is that it's not a possibility that I will be arrested. I will be arrested. I've already had this happen in Bulgaria. They know where I am. I have documents from 2017 in which the FBI special agent says they're still trying to get me, but unfortunately the St. Kitts government is being uncooperative. But by uncooperative, he means that the courts have turned him down here by rule of law, but they're still actively trying to get me. Somebody explain this to me, because it's nuts.
Yes. I mean, it is rarely in this world that I am speechless without an explanation to, like, some logic or some reasoning in this. But your story lacks any amount of logic and reasoning. It is a definite, valid show of corruption, and the government probably very well knowing that they have made a huge fucking mistake and just not being willing to admit it. And so therefore they're willing to put your life at risk because of it.
Exactly what I've been telling people, and they think I'm crazy. But now that they hear the story, and keep in mind, I got court documents to back everything I've said so far.
Well, and the other thing is
what are the other conclusions?
What's really funny is, so we were supposed to do this live back in December, was it?
Yep, and then I made a fish video.
Yeah, we were supposed to do this live back in December, and right about the time we were supposed to do this live, that is when I received the death threats. And I had not planned this live until recently, because you're dealing with the FBI on this, and you are wanted by the FBI. And I am in the middle of an investigation that involves the FBI. And I did not want to get my ass in trouble. And I had to actually get clearance to have this live with you from the agent that I am dealing with on my particular case, which he did give me permission to do so. And
that's cool.
I wasn't sure if he was going to. And the day I never nagged you. The day I reached out to you to plan this, because he said, I don't see a problem with you doing that. He's like, I looked into it, and
I never nagged you because I suspected it was something like that. I told you the FBI in the past has actually told people not to talk to me as well. Not your agent, but I mean my agent.
He didn't. He absolutely did not. I said to him, what I don't want to do is have any implication on the case that you're working on with me. And but I do know that this involves your agency. Is this going to be a conflict of interest? And I did not hear back from him for a couple weeks, and it had raised up a little bit of anxiety in me. And eventually sent me an email and said, feel free to do that live with whoever you're talking about. It has nothing to do with this case whatsoever, and there is no crossover between our division of the FBI. I guess I didn't realize the FBI had divisions, but I'm assuming just like everywhere else they do. And what is going on with what you're mentioning. So
I appreciate you did that, but I guarantee he didn't. I guarantee he may have said he didn't know whoever it is, but I guarantee he knew, because there have been so many people calling the FBI tip line in Pittsburgh telling them about me. They're like, I want to report a sighting of a fugitive, and they're like, give me the name. I'm like, where'd you see him? And they're like, TikTok. I mean, we made a video about that. So
I'm sorry, but that actually
I'm trying to get somebody to send me a recording.
That actually somewhat amuses me, that they think that you would be on TikTok if you were actually concerned that they were going to show up at your house and arrest you. Because not only are you not concerned,
but they have done that already.
You've basically, and well, the other thing is, but you basically come on every day and say, I'm in St. Kitts. It's an island that is as big as my hand, and come get me. Like, they can't.
Yeah.
And they have. We had our house raided before. They raided our house, swatted our house, and that was in 2002. In 2002, the U.S. Embassy swatted our house, told the federal government of Cyprus we were drug dealers. They came and swatted the house. They had to apologize to us, and then we did some digging, and we linked it back to the U.S. Embassy. And that was 2002. And I was arrested in Bulgaria. So it's like people say, aren't you afraid you're going to get arrested? It's like, been there, done that. Catch up.
I can't imagine much in life is worse than a Bulgarian prison.
Caribbean prison.
Is it worse?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Bulgarian was no pipe dream, but yeah. No, listen, our prison here, for example.
Do not shoplift goods in Caribbean. Got it.
Our prison here was built in it's one of the oldest operating prisons in the world. It's built in the 1700s or something. It was designed in 1750 for 100 people, and has 400 in it today. And the health standards back then, and a lot of the Caribbean prisons like that. I mean, ours is better than the Bahamian one SBF was in, but it's still not saying much.
Yeah. So
There's a devil
I
door
had a
knocker on the
question.
door.
I had a question in my head, and as we were just talking, it went in one ear and out the other. Let me think for a second, because it was a good one. Oh, here's my question. Because of this, obviously, you had a very high-level job with Microsoft. You lost your job. Obviously, because of your health, you are not able to work. How has your family been managed to exist and subside with 3 children with what has happened to you?
Well, I don't want to go into too many details, but I'll say we sold a lot of things. Our car is over 20 years old. We never accumulated a lot of debt and my wife's income, but money's getting extremely tight. And at some point, we're going to financially crash.
Okay. So somebody just asked this question. So if you didn't kidnap your son, why are you wanted by the police? That is where
I'll let you answer
in the
that.
story. He did not kidnap his son. Jurisdiction was moved when there shouldn't have been jurisdiction. There was a custody order granted in which he had permission in the state of Tennessee to take and live with his child internationally. His child was kidnapped when he was on a break to the United States by his ex-wife. He was taken from the ex-wife by police, put back on a plane to go live internationally with his father. Jurisdiction was changed. The wife lied to the local prosecutor and said that the jurisdiction should have always been in Pennsylvania because the child was born in Pennsylvania, which the child was not born in Pennsylvania. He was born in Tennessee. And through the process of all of that, it ended up at the FBI who filed a charge of kidnapping against him. And he has now been wanted for 20 or 14 years, right? That was 2008 that the
17. It depends which date. The date of his kidnapping or the date of the warrant or the date of this warrant. I say 17. I'm going by the date they say I kidnapped him. So 17.
Okay, so 17. All because Pennsylvania's prosecutor did not properly check into the fact that the case should never have been moved out of Tennessee to Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania did not have jurisdiction over this custody case because the child never lived in the state of Pennsylvania. He only visited there on custodial break or on breaks when his mother had custody during summer months or when he had been kidnapped by the mother.
And people who
always
do
had
not
jurisdiction, and the
understand,
custody case in Tennessee states that the father has full custody and has permission to live with him internationally.
Yep. And he was already living overseas for several years when they said he was kidnapped at that point. It wasn't like I took him and they're like, oh, he's kidnapped. It was like he was already living overseas. Then years later, they said he's kidnapped. And then 3 years later, they arrested me. It's like there was no anything. But I do want to make one correction. It's not a Pennsylvania state prosecutor. He's a federal prosecutor in the Western District of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And people that don't know, Pennsylvania is one of the most corrupt states of prosecutor or the law system, the jurisdiction, all of that. Pennsylvania is one of the worst states in the United States. I live in Pennsylvania. Tammy knows, and
He was a state prosecutor before he's federal. So if that helps, he was a Pennsylvania state prosecutor too, first.
Yeah, I mean, when she said that you were from Pennsylvania, or that this got hung up in Pennsylvania, I was like, well, now I get it. Now I get it. It's, yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania is one of those states. People don't realize how corrupt it really is. And it's a shame. And they're very good at covering things up as well.
That's why I left in 1994. I did not, the state government, wasn't the people, wasn't the jobs, wasn't the family. It was, I got sick of just the bureaucracy and stuff. I was out of there.
No, I understand he's never lived in PA, but the person is from PA. That's what I'm saying.
I left in 94, but he was born 2 years later in a different state. But I'm originally from Pennsylvania, yeah.
Okay, so.
Daryl Morrison, why have the charges not been dropped and the warrant dissolved if you are innocent? We all have that question.
Yes.
Because he's got the documentation.
It's a CYA
he's
operation.
Actually sent me the documentation that proves this. His son is now 26 and has spoken to media outlets about this. And yet the government will not drop the charges, which holds him in St. Kitts Island without the medical attention. If he leaves St. Kitts and goes anywhere, the Interpol Red Notice will have him arrested. Chad's health is waning. He needs medical attention that cannot be given to him in St. Kitts. And so he does not have the capability to leave St. Kitts to get that help because he will be arrested upon landing in any other country because of an Interpol Red Notice.
Somebody did ask, is there a statute of limitations on this?
No, for 3 reasons. 1, on this particular charge they charged me with, there is no statute of limitations. Number 1. Number 2, in the indictment, they removed the statute of limitations as if it needed to be. And number 3, they only have to charge you within the statute of limitations, not convict you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And in all likelihood,
so you want to hear about when I offered to turn myself in?
In the United States, these charges would eventually be dropped. But in the meantime, you could potentially die because you're not getting medical treatment, or they could stand on their wall. He was
okay,
charged,
you're taking notes, right?
He was charged with kidnapping.
You were quicker than I could type, Tammy.
I actually got.
So I forgot where I was going.
I had lots of coffee today.
Okay.
Oh, good.
If there is one thing, Chad, that you would like everybody to hear from you about this entire situation or about your current situation right now, what would it be?
I'm going to need to think on that for a minute.
You can think on that.
I guess
that's
the simplest would be that, yeah, how bad my health is and how bad it's been for years. I should have been air evacuated years ago. I'm begging for my life. I think that's the simplest thing I want people to know is, listen, it's urgent. It's been urgent. It's a miracle I'm still alive. The doctors don't know how. How long do I have to live? Could be 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. Because the biggest risk is kidney failure, stroke, heart attack, or sepsis. And I'm constantly battling kidney infections. And a kidney infection can kill you in a few days. And I've been battling them for years. No, first of all, I want to answer this comment. This person says the only way is to have it doing in court. That's not true. 8% of federal cases are flat out dismissed by the prosecutors without going to court. The prosecutor has admitted he can dismiss it, but refuses. Oh, that's what I want to talk. That's what I want to say, because I offered to turn myself in. I did offer to turn myself in at one point under a couple conditions. One is that he would not seek to extend the trial date beyond guaranteed by the Speedy Trials Act, which is 70 days. I would be released on bond while I was there, and I'd be given adequate medical treatment and transport. They said no in September 2022. The prosecutor explicitly said the only way that I'm allowed to turn myself in is if I turn myself in to the U.S. Embassy in St. Kitts. There is no U.S. Embassy in St. Kitts, and he knew that when he said it. But he said it because he's just trying to throw anything he can out there to cause any sort of delays or obstruction. He even objected to the fact that we filed a petition to dismiss, and this is all in court records in the transcripts. He said that he doesn't even feel that I have a right to the hearing. And when my lawyer reiterated, explained to him again that there is no U.S. Embassy in St. Kitts, and that I have to go to another country and I'd be arrested before I got there, and I can't because of medical, he was like, don't care.
So he gave you an option he gave you an option that's not even a possible option. He told you to go to a place that does not exist.
Yes. But he also believes in time travel, so. I mean, for example, on the FBI website, if you go Google me, well, first of all, the search is broken on the FBI website. So if you search my name, you won't find it. You got to put my name, space FBI, and then it'll take you to the FBI website, right? And if you think I'm not wanted anymore, then you can look up September 2022 court records, confirm I'm wanted, as well as the news articles about it. But he, sorry, I ran off a cliff there. I was talking about the court hearings, and what was I talking about before the court hearing, before the September, when, the warrant. Okay, yeah. On the FBI website, first of all, it says former Titusville man. I've never lived in Titusville in my life. I've never even spent a single night in Titusville. You'd think they could at least get that right. Second of all, what they claim on the website I did is not only impossible and didn't happen, but does not actually match what the indictment says. The indictment, see, on the FBI website, they say that I held him overseas. It doesn't say that I took him. But the warrant and the indictment say that I physically took him. So they don't even have on the website what they match. So they're on the website like, oh, it's a custody dispute. But in the warrant, it clearly says I kidnapped him and took him out of the United States. So, and I'm not from Titusville. I've never lived in Titusville.
Thank God.
That's where your ex-wife's family
is. Yeah.
That's where she moved after you divorced. Mm-hmm. That's where she's originally from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, she's not originally from there. She's from Erie. She moved there because she didn't want to be, she wanted to be close to her mom, but not too close.
Okay.
She wanted the Raymond Spaghetti rule, which is from Everybody Loves Raymond. She wanted to be close enough that her mom could visit and go home the same day and not have to spend the night, but not close enough that her mom was over too much.
Of all the places, so I'm from that area. And I live in, my family lives in a small town in Pennsylvania called Oil City. It's literally a neighboring town of Titusville. And of all of the places in Pennsylvania that she could have chosen to live within a proximity of Erie, I, in my life of lives, cannot imagine why anybody would have chose Titusville, Pennsylvania.
And Chad, guess where I live? Erie.
Erie? Okay, I'm Prep 92. I used to live on West 29th between Liberty and Cherry.
Does she still lives in Pennsylvania now, currently?
Yeah, she's now moved back around 2019 or 2020. She moved to Erie County, Pennsylvania again.
Oh, do you want me to just find her and I'll take her out?
I know where she's at. I'm just not going to say in the live because somebody reported me for doxing her. I have her address because it's in Google and it was in the letter she sent to the judge. You want her phone number? DM me later.
Can we send 167 pieces of mail to her house?
Sure.
Dude, all you gotta do is send me to her house. I'll be like, hi, how are you?
Reporters have shown up to her house. My lawyers have been to the house. And every time they go, she's like, I didn't know this still was going on. Meanwhile, she filed in court against me in 2021. We have documentary filmmakers. We had a documentary filmmaker that won't make the documentary because they can't get her side of the story because she won't talk to them. You would think if your child's been kidnapped all these years and a documentary filmmaker calls you up, wouldn't you be like, hey, I'm going to tell you everything I know. What does she say? I'm not talking.
Basement,
because she knows she can hurt me by not talking.
You don't become a mod. I have a mod here, and I only have mods that I know. So unfortunately, I don't know you to make you a mod.
Yeah, I mean, if she lives in Erie, we'll talk after this. I could just
DM me. Oh, DM me. I'll send you whatever you want. You want photos?
I'll just take a little drive.
So somebody asked, do you have an attorney in the U.S.?
Yep. We have a former federal prosecutor, and he's a bruiser. He loves to go to trial, but we can't get to the trial. We've offered to go to trial, but they just won't allow. I mean, here's what's going to happen. If I were to somehow get back to the U.S., I'd be held for 2 to 3 years without a trial, during which they try and force me into a plea bargain the entire time. Now, I know some kiddo is going to come out and be like, you have a right to a speedy trial. Yeah. Well, Sixth Amendment guarantees you right to a speedy trial, does not specify how long a speedy trial is. And I can get into specifics if you want, but judges, even in Erie County, have said that 8 years is speedy trial. It's up to the judge. They often say years is a speedy trial. I'm not going to be given bail because I'll be a flight risk because I have a second citizenship and I've been a fugitive for 17 years. And they already denied me bail anyways. And even if they do give me bail, where am I going to live? I haven't lived in the U.S. in over 20 years, and I'm going to be restricted to Erie County, Pennsylvania, or at least the Western District of Pennsylvania. I got nobody to live with. My wife's not a U.S. citizen. I got kids under 18 that be living down here. So I'll be stuck in prison for years.
I got a couch.
Sorry.
I got a couch.
I got a couch. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate it. But my family's going to be here. And the thing is, people say, oh, they don't do the people. No, I know somebody they did this to, and this is documented. I can send you the link in the newspapers if you want. There was a guy from St. Kitts. He was not even an American citizen. He was a Canadian citizen. He was wanted for charges on lesser charges than I am. They found out he was flying from the Caribbean to Canada. They forced the plane down by declaring an air traffic emergency. When it landed, they never told the pilot why, but they said, you got somebody on board. You got to give him up before he can take back off. They gave him up. They put him into a Florida prison for 2 years, tried to get him to plea bargain the entire time. At the end of 2 years, they came to him and said, you know what? We don't actually have any charges, and we're not going to give you a trial, but you've been in prison 2 years waiting for a trial. So go ahead and go home and bugger off. And they do this all the time. But that guy, not only is it documented in newspaper articles and things, but I knew his family. I knew his son. I knew his brother. I still know. I mean, I know his brother. He's dead. So I know his brother, his son, his nephew, his sister-in-law. And so I know the story firsthand as well as what's in the news articles.
I love when people come in at this point and they want to know what happened. Like, you can't summarize the story.
Yeah.
So we have at least come out of this with a potential new course of action. So I know that I've got some work to do, and I know that I need you to send me some email addresses, and I need you to send me maybe some preferred news outlets. I know one of them is Joe Rogan, and I have sort of feelings on that could hurt you more than help you, because so many people do not like him.
Well, they're going to take, I've dealt with that. They follow with my story and forget about they don't worry about the messenger. But Joe Rogan, Concrete, Wendigoon, PKA, Nelk, I don't even know half these places. These are just places people tell me to go. Listen, anybody willing to get my story out. You got to remember, this is not something like, oh, I can wait. My life's on the line. So I will literally talk to almost anyone at this point. I mean, I do have certain cutoffs, but I got no problem with Joe. He's the messenger, period.
Did Rosa from the Father's Rights Movement ever reach out to you?
No.
No? Okay. Let me contact him again and see if I can get him to reach out to you, because getting you on their platform could be helpful, because they have 700 and some thousand followers. And he said that he would. So I'll follow up with him.
We know that when this story goes, this is a slow burn, but when this thing blows, it's going to flash over. And that's just what I'm begging for, is that spark that, I mean, it's like a slow burning fire. It's burning under the grass. I'm sorry, I'm a former firefighter too. Slow burning, and at some point it hits a fuel source and it goes woof, and I'm trying to get that spark.
Well, we're going to put together a campaign to hopefully get you that spark.
Yeah, and I really believe the letter writing campaign, I really believe the change.org will ignite at least, the amount that you need.
So anybody
I see all the time on news stories.
Anybody that is in here that is listening right now, take this as one important thing. Chad's life is on the line right now. And if Chad were such a horrible, wretched human being, he wouldn't be living happily in St. Kitts with a wife, 2 beautiful children that lives in his home, and a son who is now an adult and has chosen to live just down the road from him. If that doesn't say something about the character of a person, that his son, who has been through all of this with him, that he is being accused of kidnapping, is choosing to live right down the road from him as a full-grown adult, that should say something. And if we don't get the attention of the media, we don't get the attention of the federal prosecutor to change this charge and release it, Chad will lose his life over this, because he cannot get the medical treatment that he needs in St. Kitts. The hospital does not have the capability to even diagnose and treat the kidney issues that he's dealing with. And he needs to get to a hospital that can do that for him. And if we don't get somebody that has a large enough voice across some form of U.S. media to put this out there, to put that pressure on, this man will die, leaving behind 3 children and a wife that loves him. And if you can't hear that and hear a plea for somebody's life and say, you know what, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to spread the word, I'm willing to talk about his story, then I don't know how else to plead with you to do that. But I will be working on a letter writing campaign that will be up on a website probably by the end of the weekend for sure. We will be issuing out this change.org certificate that will go out also by the end of the weekend, and be ready for a campaign. So be watching my page, be watching Chad's page, be watching everybody else's pages, because we are going to start getting real fucking loud right now. Because when I decide I'm going to get loud about something, I generally get pretty freaking loud about it.
That should be your intro trailer to this whole recording. You take very good notes, and it's good to be able to speak to somebody. Well, not with that too, but I mean that whole summary there, because the thing is, since I'm so involved in the story, I have difficulty summarizing it. And to speak to someone new, it's very complex, and most people can't grok it all one time. So it takes me a long time to get people to understand everything. But you got everything pretty much. You took notes very well and organized them on the fly. So that's one of the best summaries I've seen, and you need to make that alone a video.
I will absolutely make that a video, and I will make a few other videos, because I think one of the things that I have always struggled with, and this is my honest thing, is like I
break
page and it's
keep talking
so much, and I'm like, I need a breakdown summary. I need a summary. But now that I've been able to kind of see what's going on your page, see some of the documentation, and then actually have this conversation with you, that summary now seems easy to me to explain in the simplest form. And that's one of the things that I'm good at is breaking it down. Why you guys have a pic of you on here, that is not you. That is the man that's in this bottom box that probably took a restroom break because he has kidney issues. So I've got a busy next couple days ahead of me.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Gotta love our justice system. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of our justice system. I honestly think I'm one of very few people that has had a good experience with our justice system through the threats that were given to me. But the only reason why is there was a high-ranking government official involved in those threats too.
Dude, if you lived in PA, woo. Lord.
I mean, I hit the bullet of a big city person moving to a small town for the safety of this family and wanting to make waves. Why did you have to talk to the FBI?
I'm writing it right now.
I had to talk to the FBI to do a chat with Chad because I am in the middle of somebody being prosecuted that sent me credible threats to my life back in December, and it is an FBI case. And there's not a lot I can say in regards to that because a lot of it is under a gag order from them to very loosely keep any details out of it. But
my whole file is sealed.
Yeah, well, apparently you don't listen, sir. Does it impact, do you think that it impacts you in any way that you're becoming loud in public about this? Or it's not changing anything either way? You're not.
You mean, does it increase my anxiety or anything?
Or on with you?
They don't have a gag order against me. What they do is my whole indictment's sealed. They say, because I have a copy of it because during the extradition they had to give it to the foreign government. So I have, but then they resealed it. So what are they hiding? And we filed FOIA requests and they block it because they say I'm a violent felon and I'm a violent fugitive. So they can't even comply with FOIA requests. I mean, what's the cover up here? It's just it's insane. None of this makes any sense. And it's not incompetence. This was willful for some reason or other. It's too much incompetence. It's too much.
In your mind, why do you think they willfully did this?
I have very wide possible views on this. Lived in Rogersville, St. County. Yeah. We lived in Churchill and has the Gordonsville address. Churchill address, the Gordonsville telephone number. Somebody in Tennessee. So it's too much of a string of happenings to be incompetence. You can't have this much incompetence on this much incompetence on incompetence. There is willful action here from the beginning. Now, as far as to why, this is where it gets weird because even the best of the possibilities that have been presented to me are still insanely wild. So let's start with the simplest. And the simplest is still pretty crazy. The simplest is that Judge White was an utter bumbling moron and didn't do any checks at all. And then when he found that he goofed up, he's like, okay, I'm doubling down. And then she went and got a cooperative FBI agent, Nick Mick, who wanted to advance his career by catching the world's international kidnapper. And so they just did all this so they could make headlines and advance his career. Now, there may be some thing to support this. Now, I have not ever been able to find this, but we did find some evidence that at one point the FBI agent on the case had a much more senior position than he had when he participated in prosecuting me. And he also was all of a sudden in Erie, and I don't know if he has any family ties, but you don't go from the position he had to a low position in Erie. Erie is Siberia, Pennsylvania. No offense to Erieites. I love y'all, but you get what I'm going for, right? Nobody goes from a high-level FBI position to a low-level in Erie. So why'd that happen? I'm thinking the dude got demoted for something he'd done. And then he's like, well, how can I get back? Well, here's an easy case. I got this woman willing to lie. I'm willing to go along with this. We got this judge who said this. Let's go with it. And the prosecutor is all the same. These prosecutors are always looking to climb up and to be judges or, be elected to office. And so he got with him. They worked together closely and they did this. That's the simplest explanation, but even that is pretty freaking bad.
Yeah.
There are some wilder theories, but I hesitate. I'll go down with him some other time because it gets so wild beyond that to the point of I start sounding like a conspiracy nut, despite me having some evidence of some of the other things I could tell you as well. Like I told you, they swatted our house in 2002, why did that happen? I think there's a possibility that a lot of the things that happened to me when I started living in Russia in the year 2001, possibly they're connected. And that might explain why they're trying to cover all this up. Is it because this is a lot to cover up just to save someone's career, especially since one of them is retired and one is nearing retirement. He could easily just retire. There's a lot of active stuff going on here that makes me think it might be linked to some of the things that happened to me prior, all the way as far back as 2001. But once I start talking about them, it gets so wild that I don't know. I already have trouble getting people to believe all the stuff that I can prove. And to wade into those territories, I'm kind of of the opinion that at this point, I don't even care why right now. I care what. I want healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in trauma levels of pain every day. I want healthcare, and I can worry about the why later. And let me tell you, some of them are wild. But again, I have evidence indicating that there's a good possibility. I may be what's called a targeted individual.
Yeah. I wish I had some great words of I'm always one that prides myself on having advice or positivity for somebody in the best situation. But the only thing that I can tell you is that I will at least make every effort and power in my being to get loud for you and to put together a campaign to allow others to easily get loud for you. And I think that I've got enough good followers that I've made within the Father's Rights movement to be willing participants in helping in a mailing campaign and helping in a letter writing campaign and helping at least put pressure where pressure is needed, because your family can send all the letters they want, but there's still only a very small, minute group of people. And that needs to be letters coming from hundreds. And Tall Cool, you're right. It's absolutely inhumane. It's inhumane to know that somebody is suffering in pain without medical care and refusing to even allow them to get the care that they need. And even if that means, he has to be taken by police to somewhere. The fact that they refuse to do that is complete and utter incompetence by the United States government. And it's such a complete, unbelievable level of disregard for human life. And of course, unfortunately, we've seen that many times within our government, but to hear it, know it, and sit and look face to face and look somebody in the eye and know that your life is being disregarded because of somebody's pride of what may fucking happen to their career is one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard in my entire life. I wanted to step up my career, and I'm willing to destroy a man and his family to do that. And that is irreprehensible.
Don't think it doesn't hurt to have the world tell you we don't care. And that's why I'm on TikTok and I got my followers, but it's not enough yet. And I hate to be begging for more, but let me tell you, it hurts mentally too.
I can't.
But I'm getting through it. But yeah.
I can't imagine. I have so much respect for you, and I can't imagine having to wake up every day in pain and fight this fight. But you show up every day and you keep fighting it. And you keep coming back. And I know the reason you're doing that is I know you're fighting for your life. And I know that the reason you're fighting for your life is not just for you, it's for your children. And if people can't see see the honor in that, as a woman that lost her father, I know that my dad existed in this world well longer than any medical doctor thought he should exist in this world. And the only reason he did is because he did not want to leave his kids behind. And that is exactly what you're doing. You're fighting this fight every day for them. And anybody that can't see honor in that and can't step outside themselves and take 5 minutes to click some link on a website that we're going to build to send a letter is not a follower I want and is a fucking selfish asshole. That's my 2 cents on it.
It brings up a point. It's like all these TikTokers have been trying to get to cover me. And actually, some of the people in the chat here were some of the people involved in this, so they will know. But like Tizzy we've had people trying to get Tizzy to talk
Oh.
about me for at least 6 months, and he blocked people for talking about me. And we've tried to get other, I mean, Noah Glenn Carter did 2 videos on me. Unfortunately, the second one, the music was so loud you couldn't hear what he was saying, but he did do the 2 videos. I'm grateful. But there's so many between family court lawyers who could cover me, general lawyers. One lawyer will at least acknowledge me, but he says he won't talk to me because he doesn't want to be possibly charged with aiding and abetting since I'm not his client. So I get that. But a lot of lawyers, they won't even acknowledge me. And a lot of the influencers, if a bunch of influencers would just pick and run with this, I could get covered. Even like True Crime, like crime_cast, I think is her name. She messaged me. She's like, okay, we're going to talk in 3 days. And then for like a month now, I can't get her to ping me back at all. She won't even acknowledge my messages. And she said she was going to cover it. The true crime people should be all over this. So should the missing kids people. And yet nothing. I mean, Nick Mick, Liston was missing until last year. They only removed him after I did a viral TikTok and tagged them. I did a viral TikTok, was getting 1 million views in like a day. I tagged the Nick Mick account. They blocked me and took his poster down instantly, despite what they said they would never do without a court order. We have documents from them because we had lawyers write them the first week in 2008 and continually over the years. We've had people calling Nick Mick, telling them he's in the Caribbean. They've always known. They said they would never take down the poster. And this is in an email from their legal counsel, from Nick Mick's legal counsel, that they will not remove his missing child poster until instructed to do so by a court. And yet a viral TikTok got him taken down. I mean, they're all running for cover.
I will say this, just in regards to the larger TikTokers like Tizzy and people like that. It's actually, you always want to go for the middle, I find. Not the hugest TikTokers, but the middle of the road. And I don't mean Tammy's the middle of the road, but she has just the right amount of followers that don't just follow her to follow her. They follow her because they believe in what she does. They believe in her. And a lot of Tizzy's followers and him, he just wants the followers. He wants the attention. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care about people. And I don't care about saying that about him. A lot of big TikTokers feel that way, that if their story isn't going to be controversial, if it's not going to bring hate or division, if it's just going to be a feel-good, helpful story, they don't want to do it.
Yep.
So somebody did mention that
would be
Jolly
my
Ginger.
biggest...
He would be a good source. Jolly Ginger would be a good one.
Yeah,
we've been tagging him for months. He has not blocked anyone, but he has not acknowledged or replied to any of the tags. Yeah. So yes, we've tried all sizes. Go for it.
Hey Ross, I'm not accepting
guests.
Michelle's really here just as a live, but I want this to stay focused on Chad, not a general bigger conversation. But I mean, at this point in time, at least we've got sort of a small plan, but small plans can become big.
What I find odd is that a lot of the influencers that I was asking for help for smaller influencers, like when I was tiny, mm-hmm. that, and I'm not speaking about anybody in particular. If you're on my friends list, then it's not you. Okay. Because a couple people might think it's them. I was asking for their help when I was tiny and they just ignored me. And now I'm 4 times the size of them or 10 times whatever. And they're asking me for help. And it's like, I used to, and I still do help some, but I'm so focused on my issue right now. If I can't help you, it's because I got my own problems right now. Yeah. But occasionally I do post to other people. I've been telling people about Amy Nelson and a couple of the people who got in trouble with the FBI over bullcrap too. So I still try and help when I can. But if I'm not helping you, it's not that I'm mad at you or anything. It's not that I don't believe. And some of you know what I'm talking about. I got huge ass problems right now. I can't be diverting my channel.
You've got medical
problems. You've got medical problems. Yeah. Your job is to take care of you. And you, as we know as advocates, you can't help anybody else until you are well. So no one should be asking for your help right now. Good God.
It's the reason why when these threats came in against me, it's the reason why shortly after I left TikTok for 6, 7, almost 8 weeks, because mental health was not okay for me. And I could not be on a platform in a position to ever help anybody or to advocate for anything when I couldn't function in my day-to-day life because my PTSD was so bad. And so I got the help I needed before I came back and threw myself back into the ring of all of this.
Ross says he was going to suggest contacting the Fathers and Families Coalition of America.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna put together a whole bunch of different things that I'm gonna contact, but as well as I'm gonna get this website, do some building and build a page and stuff, and write these letters and get this chng.org up. As I said, by the end of the weekend, so that we can start kind of advertising and talking about that and getting as many people as possible to share it. And I will definitely put together a summary video. And I can tell by the look on your face right now that you are done, Chad, and you need to go rest because you are fading.
Actually, no, I'm good. It's up to you. No, I'm actually good. I was thinking I'm on a lot of medications right now, a lot of painkillers.
Okay.
And dealing with pain. But I'm sorry, I didn't catch your friend's name, but Reclaiming. You said you're in Erie, right?
Yes.
Do you know Twan Taylor?
No.
Okay. Try and get in contact with Twan Taylor. He's a community activist in the Lower East Side. He was trying to help us at one point and will be willing to help, time willing.
Okay.
If you just ask around Erie groups, if you ask around like JCAC, ask anybody, any community group in Erie should know who Twan Taylor is.
Okay.
The Police Athletic League will know who he is.
All right.
Well, at this point, I'll probably come back on live in a little bit. I have a little boy that is about to go to bed, and that's why I ended the live at 9:30, so his mommy could tell him good night. But Chad, one, I want to thank you for coming in and telling your story. Two, I will put together everything that I've said. I'll put together over the course of the next couple days, and I will make every effort to get your story out there more than it has. And I'm going to make a focus on putting some energy and effort into this across my plethora of TikTok channels.
Yeah. And I will, and please reach out to me and let me know what I could do locally here. And on my channel as well. I don't have a big of a channel as Tammy, but I do have good people that follow me that are, will sign a petition. They care. So like I said, I don't have a tizzy thing, but I feel in these kind of things, it's not about numbers. Sometimes it's about the quality of the people that you have that follow you more than the numbers of the people that you have that follow you.
Yeah. I appreciate it. One last thing I want to say, though, is just ping me tomorrow because I'm in a lot of pain. I'll forget tonight. Just DM me tomorrow. But if we can hook up on Telegram or WhatsApp, so we can send voice notes. It's hard for me to type. But Tammy, definitely use that part I told you for the trailer. But if you can also get that clip where you talked to people who lived in Titusville who knew my ex.
Yeah.
If you could get that out, I want a TikTok of that, and I wanted to show it to my current wife here.
Okay. Yeah. Once I get the ability, usually it takes 24 hours to get the ability to download. Once I get the ability to download and get this transferred off my phone, I will have that up on YouTube for you.
Cool.
So it'll be available not just for you to show your wife, but for the world to see on TikTok or on YouTube. So I will get that up for you. It'll take me a couple days because there'll be parts of this that I want to clip that YouTube video down to the important parts. So the conversation like this that we're just having is not there because people may not watch it all. I want the important parts of the story to be told in that. But I will include.
Have you tried Descript yet?
Have I what?
Are you using Descript yet?
What is
Are you using the Descript software?
No.
Oh, you have to use it. Okay. Descript, you get like 1 hour free a month, but it's only like $20 for a whole lot of hours if you want, or 20. Anyways, it's cheap, but it's also free. So you get like 1 hour a month. And what you do is you throw a video into it or a bunch of videos. It transcribes all of it as like a text document. And you go and edit. You can cut and paste and delete things, and it edits the video automatically to match. So you want to cut out the parts you don't want, you just go in and cut the text out of the document, and it fixes the whole video for you. And you can go in and there's a function that say remove all the empty gaps for me over like 1 second, or I do 5 seconds because it trims down my TikToks. And that way when I'm recording, I can say, I can goof up. And I say I have a keyword. It's actually the F word. When I screw up, I say, and then I say it over. And then all I have to do is search for the word, F word. And I know where I goofed up to cut out of the document, and it edits the video with everything perfect.
Yeah. So if I transfer it to my computer, I mean, I was a videographer, animation, all of that stuff. I use the Adobe suite.
But you still use Adobe for that. But seriously, look into Descript because it does not replace Adobe or anything. It's totally different than it. It lets you edit all the pieces of the video you don't want out just by removing the text, and then you take that video and put it into Adobe.
Okay.
You need to check it. Trust me, if you don't check this software, you're going to shoot yourself, and later you're going to be like, I should have checked this out. I guarantee you're going to want to check this out.
I'll look into it. Yeah, I definitely will look into it. I want to know what before we go, I want to know what Kiki Sum has to say about a lot of excuses about what. I'm waiting for her to answer, and then I'm going to go because my kiddo is waiting to talk to me. His dad's texted me twice now.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to come back. So anyways, everybody be on the lookout for some action items to be coming in the next 3 to 5 days so that we can actually start doing something other than just talking about this. And we can start this email campaign to get under this prosecutor's skin and get this out to other news agencies. And on that, I appreciate everybody that's joined and stayed and chatted and talked tonight. And have a lovely evening, everybody.
Yes. Bye. Nice
Bye.
meeting you,
Thank you, Chad. Thanks, Michelle.
Bye. Thanks.